We're going to start again. Today we have Rob Sanderson, founder and director of SWEL. I appreciate you joining us and telling your story. How are you doing today?
Yeah, great, man. It's sunny out here in Missouri, finally. A lot of rain, but yeah, dude, great day.
Are you into college football?
Oh yeah, man. I love college sports.
Who's supposed to be pretty good?
Yeah, I don't really have a favorite team. I just like watching them compete, man.
Yeah.
They're like a lot of those kids are out there. They know they aren't going to make the next level, but they're just out there giving it their all. So
yeah. I like your coach, Drinkwitz, Mizzou's coach. He's just a really likable guy. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about you. So, Rob Sanderson. So, how did you start? Like, what was your early days? Like, where did you come from? How'd you get into, I don't know, in the direction of the police force? What led you there?
So I was a Navy brat. My dad was a fighter pilot. Man, I lived all over the place: Florida, Hawaii, California, Virginia, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Kansas, and Missouri. So yeah,
Wow.
travel around quite a bit. I don't think I ever really lived anywhere longer than 4 years growing up, and even into the adulthood. And I just always had that kind of mindset of service. Originally, I thought I was going to go and be a pilot like my dad. I went through most of Marine Corps officer candidate school, which is the hardest 8.5 weeks, which should have been 9 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
Got injured and came back, and then I went on a ride along with a buddy of mine that graduated college and became a cop. And I was like, man, I could do this. 9/11 rolls around. And it's like, man, it's now or never. I got to get in there and do something for our country. And that's what I chose, as law enforcement.
That's awesome. So it stems from your father. That's kind of where I got mine from too. My dad was chief of police, and I think I heard you mention it in one of your episodes that you released. Mine was 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I got the opportunity to go take the ASVAB, and the path created itself, and it sounded like that's kind of like when yours started too.
Yeah, no, I remember very distinctly my dad calling me. I was a senior in college, and I knew why he was calling, to talk about the attacks. It was that day. And all I remember him saying is, what are you going to do about this? That's what he kept saying. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I feel like that really lit a fire under a lot of us. It was like, hey, we got to do something about this. We don't want this to happen to us again, But no, I love it. You mentioned Marine. I'm sorry, I chase shiny things, but a Marine pilot. It reminded me of a time in Iraq. We had a Harrier come in and land, and the pilot got off, and they're notoriously known for having their canopies just shattered. So he landed at nighttime blind with instruments only in his eyes. Had it been this big around when he landed, because he was so just maxed out. And I was like pinning his aircraft, and I was like, glad you made it, sir. That's a cool career field. So you joined the police force. Where'd you start at?
Yeah, so I went to an academy that was a federally funded academy. They had them in like 28 different states throughout the nation. The idea was to get college graduates into local law enforcement. Originally, I was going to go, it was called Police Corps. I was going to go to the Texas Police Corps. And right before they were set to kick it off, that funding got pulled for whatever reason. And I needed a job. So I reached out to the national office, like, well, hey, Mississippi's got a class coming up in a couple months. I'm like, never been. Here I go.
Yep.
Never really been to Mississippi. So yeah, I did the Mississippi track, and then spent 4 years down in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Okay.
And then after Katrina came through and blew us all away, moved up to the Midwest, got recruited for some cops down there. All is good. Lost my accent, my teeth grew back, and yeah, good to go.
Right. They used to say that we had one shoe that was taller than the other because we're on a mountain. That's how we stayed level.
Yeah.
So Katrina, when that hit, were you part of that? Did you do any of that? Uh-oh. So I was asking Katrina, did you do anything with Katrina? I know that I was in the military and they were going to send us down there to help with the cleanup, but that was basically, from what I heard, like a war zone.
Yeah, it was awful. I was working the night that it rolled in. It was an 11-hour storm. I think the meat of it came through around like 1 a.m. Yeah, it was brutal. I worked 48 days straight afterwards, 36 hours in a row. And then those 48 days, there's like 16-hour shifts. There's just like nothing left. And Probably because when you're in a storm, you're all hunkered down. We ended up, you know, at the county jail, like um, trying to hole up down there, and you don't really know what's going on. The aftermath, like once we finally did leave, dude, it was ridiculous. I think we had 700 911 calls we had to respond to,
Jesus.
and the dispatchers, because they couldn't have relief because nobody could get to them, so they're in there dispatching and answering the phones, and it's like they just had like, I'd never forget the look on their face. And so we would go out to these 911 calls that we had to go respond to because we couldn't during the storm. Like, yeah, family was saying that they're drowning in the attic, phone went dead. You get there and it would just be there would be nothing there but a foundation. It's like, so a lot of body recovery, a lot of long, hot, sweaty days.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was nuts.
that sucks. Yeah. Uh, mm. I was getting ready to share a story, but I'm not trying to compare anything to that. That's overwhelming. That's terrible. You know what I mean? Especially because when you do body recoveries, you don't know what you're going to see, and it's not always like, I don't know. There's in my head, there's levels. Like there's certain like elderly people doing a body recovery, like they lived a long life, but that's not
Yeah.
always the case. Sometimes they're kids, and that hurts.
Yeah, and Katrina was extra brutal because we had a couple like storm scares before that, and it was almost like the boy who cried wolf. They were like, "All
Yeah,
right, everybody, mandatory evacuation," and we'd have to go through and tell people they got to evacuate. Of course, somebody was like forcing people out of their homes, and so I think it was like that was like the second one that was pretty close, and everybody's like, "I'm not leaving again,"
yeah,
because it's like a 6 hour journey to get 100 miles north inland, because all the
yep. And then
all
all
the
the
traffic's backed
traffic,
up. So
and then
people
all
are
the
just like,
hotels are booked out.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
they stuck it out, man, and it was not good.
If you see me glancing over, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm just trying to like, I don't want to lose my space again and
Yeah,
start
no
telling you
worries, man.
stories
You're good.
about my childhood or anything weird. Uh, so your police force, like overall, I think you said you did 16 years, right?
18.
18,
Yeah.
18
Yep.
years. So overall, like, how do you feel about your service in the police force? Do you enjoy it? Whether like, I know like everything, there's pros and cons, but overall, like, did you find it a rewarding career?
I mean, I did, and I had a little bit of a more unique outlook on, I mean, just society in general. Like, my dad brought me up to be a person of service and honor, and which was a great start. But I also had some not so great experiences. My brother had a drug problem. I got to see a lot of that from that end. So I felt like I had a lot more empathy than maybe somebody who just went to college and just kind of went
Right.
through and was like, I'm gonna be the cops. Never really experienced too much in my life, and so yeah, I got to do everything that I really wanted to do, from undercover work to being a supervisor, being on the SWAT team, all the cool stuff. During
Yeah.
Katrina, I got to fly around in helicopters with the doors
That's
off, and that
amazing,
was
right?
that
Like
was sick. Yeah,
Rambo.
yeah. I'm scared of heights, but I was like, I'm not passing
Same.
this up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I did that in
so yeah,
Afghanistan
man,
and
it was really
Chinook.
rewarding. The last few years were difficult though, for sure. Just the swing in society, because I'd worked at that point 15 years, 16 years to really try and overcome any sort of stigmas people might see of police officers. And in the last few years, man, it's just like you're fighting an uphill battle. And really, law enforcement did that to themselves on a number of situations. You name it, whatever was in the news, and it's like, yeah, that's not what we should be doing. It just
Right.
with body cameras and social media and stuff, it's just more prevalent, and people see it more often, so they just label everybody. I used to tell my young cops, it's like, I don't care what interaction it is, whether you're giving somebody directions or giving somebody a ticket or helping somebody with a flat tire. That sole interaction is going to be probably the only interaction this person has with a police officer for a very long time,
Yeah.
and they're going to judge the rest of us based on how you look, how you act, and how you treat them. So
Yeah.
make every interaction a positive one, whether it's you're taking enforcement action or not.
Yeah. How did that impact you on an emotional level? Like when I was a kid, we always revered all first responders, at least in my household. Always looked at them like heroes. They were there to help and save. And then when that culture shift happened where it was like I feel like police officers were demonized. And my dad, he's police chief back home, and he went through it, and he's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. The whole body cam, you can't turn it off ever, even if you go to the bathroom. And he's like, this is uncomfortable. And I was like, I couldn't imagine being under that level of scrutiny and microscope.
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult. I've worked the last 14 years in a very supportive community and had it really good. So
Nice.
anybody listening, take that with what I'm about to say. But yeah, it sucked because it was a national kind of theme. It felt like, I know not everybody felt like that, and the vast majority of people didn't.
Yeah.
But I try to take it as a challenge. There's an incident, and here's kind of what I'm trying to describe is we had an incident where this lady was shoplifting groceries, and she pushed him out to her car without paying for it and took off. And one of my young cops ended up stopping her, pulling her over, and she simply explained like she didn't have criminal history. She just couldn't afford groceries. This is like maybe 2017, 18, something like that. And
Yeah.
so I went to the store, brought the groceries back, and talked to the manager while the young officers were out there dealing with her. And I said, "Hey, look, she's just doesn't have any money." I was like, and they're like, "No, we prosecute no matter what." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And so I pushed the groceries over and I brought it to the checker. I said, "Ring it up." And she's like, "What?" And I go, "Ring it up." So she
Yeah.
rang it up. I took my personal credit card out. I paid for it. And this lady was super nice. Went back to the scene. She couldn't afford to have her car towed. So we loaded the groceries up, took it to her apartment where her husband and 5 children were, unloaded the groceries, brought the husband back to pick up the car. He took the car home. She got processed, got her court date, and ended up released. So we did what the store owner wanted, and
Yeah.
justifiably so. I mean, they're running a business there. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I was able to show the young cops, like, hey, you can take enforcement action, but we get paid pretty well, and you can
Yeah.
afford $100 to feed a family because that
Help a
goes a long
family
way.
out.
And hopefully that family, because there's 5 kids watching 2 police officers carry groceries into their house and give their dad a ride to get the car. Maybe at some point when they see, a police officer, despite what their buddy said, they can say, "Hey, well, I remember those cops. They brought us home groceries. They took care of mom as best they could,
Right.
but they still did their job." So I
That's
saw it as
awesome.
an opportunity. Yeah.
No, I appreciate people like you. I grew up a little bit poor, and we had a network of churches and other family friends that if one of the families was struggling, they would always provide for the others. It was, and that's how we made it. So for people out there like you that are out there giving to people that are needed, I don't know, that's powerful, and it does like make a lasting impression.
Yeah. No, I hope so. And like I said, just those small interactions, and I could make that money up working an hour of overtime. And, what's an hour of your time to maybe change a little bit of somebody's point of view of your profession?
Yeah. So then you stepped away from the police force. Why'd you step away?
Yeah, it was not by choice. I ended up with a back injury.
Hmm.
From best I can tell, it was related to um, a veteran that was wanting to end it, and we ended up wrestling around on the side of the highway when I was trying to get him help. And fortunately, we were able to get him that help, and unfortunately, I injured my back pretty well. Wasn't able to get back, and was forced to take a medical retirement. So,
Dang.
fortunately, though, I made some good friends, good contacts, and
Hmm.
I'm still in law enforcement just as a civilian manager now, and still in the game. But I'm an indoor cat now. I don't get to go
Yeah.
outside anymore, which is cool with me.
Yeah. That was a hard transition for me. And that's when I ended up stepping away from the military and I did my pursuit. But that's where I am now. I'm really good at reading and writing emails. I'm probably the best. Yeah. It's not fun at all, but that's where we're at.
Yeah,
Uh,
man, for sure.
so when you're in the police force, did you start identifying any issues? Because it's hard to get through. I was doing, what was it, a research with, I can't remember the acronym at the moment, but there's a Canadian police or a Canadian doctor who's doing an overview of their federal police office. And they're like something like 200 times more likely to experience a traumatic situation in a year compared to a normal civilian. So when you're going through that and you talked about Katrina, 700 calls a day kind of thing, like, it's hard to get through that unscathed. So I feel like we all eventually get tagged with some sort of issue. And with the stigma of PTSD and getting help, like we hide that, it seems like a lot of times. So I was just curious, did you notice that there are some things going on? You might need some help?
Yeah, just like any young dumb male, I shoved it down for a long time. A lot of the stuff that I experienced during Katrina, just shoved it down. Used alcohol quite a bit, meaningless relationships, all the unhealthy things,
Yeah.
minus things that could get you arrested. And it was crazy. It wasn't for about 8 years that it surfaced because that stuff doesn't go away. I
Mhm.
was asked to give a presentation on my experience with Katrina to my shift. So I put together all these slides. I got these cool photos, man. I'm describing stuff that happened. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be like one big war story. I got up in front of my shift, man, and just bawled. Like, made it through
Yeah.
2 slides. And I was like, what in the hell? Like, it all came out. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap. Luckily, I work for, like I said, with a really good group of people, progressive in the sense of like take care of one another type of mentality. And um, went and it was funny. Like, I don't know, like a week or two later, I was scheduled to go to a peer support conference. And this lady was up there talking about EMDR
Mm.
and how that can help. And so I went and I found her and I was like, hey, I think I might need this. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not doing well. And I've just like shoved this stuff down. It's boiling over. And so she was coming to Kansas City. This was, I think we had traveled to Oklahoma or whatever, but she was coming to Kansas City to do a conference the next week. She's like, meet me in my hotel. She's like, I'll do it for nothing. So, dude, I did the EMDR with her and talked about, um, kind of what was flashing back on me, and it helped, man. It was like I still have emotions tied to my experience there, but I
Yeah.
don't get that visceral response that I
Mhm.
used to. So yeah, I was able to kind of pour that bucket out, and then the second bout, if you will, was after my separation. I know a lot of military guys had this too. It's like you're good to go as long as you're in the groove and you're doing what you're
Yeah.
trying to do. But once that stops, and then you're sitting at home by yourself and it's quiet,
Mhm.
man, that ESPN highlight reel of traumatic shit you didn't deal with just starts buzzing.
Yep.
And once again, went to the well for some talk therapy, EMDR. And again, I still have some emotion tied to those events, but I can sit here and speak about them. And I don't get that kind of gut wrenching, acidic kind of response that I did that drew out all emotion.
Yeah, that reminds me, for me, I always call that like the death of your identity, like when you get out. And it happened to me too. All this shit that I had done led to me being in like a pretty aggressive state. And I did a lot of the things that you mentioned: substance abuse, alcohol, shitty relationships, that whole thing. But I always justified that behavior by, I'm still saving lives. I'm still crushing it. I'm still doing good stuff. But when you stop doing good shit and you're just like this bad version of yourself doing all these bad modalities, I didn't have anything to justify it with. So I really struggled in that sense too. It didn't take me 8 years. It took me 10 because I'm more stubborn, I guess, than the rest of us. And it took me in the same exact thing, EMDR. I did one session with a lady, and there was a noticeable release of some of that darkness that was inside of me. And I had a tear come down my eye. And she's like, "Oh, wow." She's like, "You're crying." I was like, "No, I'm yawning. I don't know what you're talking about." I'll brush it
You're
off.
crying. I like
I
crying.
don't cry. You cry. But that was my thing. But that's really powerful. So did you stick with therapy at that session, or at that time? Did you like integrate that into your life? Or was it like a one and done kind of thing? Because I know I had to do like what we call touch and goes. I try it out and then I go back and I try it out. It took me a while to get committed to being mentally healthy.
Yeah, so the second go around was significantly worse
Mm.
for me. So it was multiple sessions, and I finally got to a point that was manageable. Um, you know, I'm not here to claim I'm a doctor or give medical advice at all, but they put me on medications that were not good for me, and
Right.
coming
I've
off
been
of
there.
them is just as bad as getting on them.
Hmm.
So that was not helpful for me, but the talk therapy certainly was. And yeah, so, and I still go and have these check-ins every once in a while, for different things now. But I think it's good, man, bouncing your problems, whether it's service related or just what's going on in life, off people, and get some solid advice. It's kind of like a marriage, though, finding the right person to talk to, because there's a lot of people that
Absolutely.
are not culturally competent out there that can, if you sat across from maybe some rando that they set you up with EAP and told them what you've been through, and you're going to make them cry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ensuring that you got the right person and then like sticking with it is important. And then, all the other things that we try to do to maintain some stability in our lives, whether it's, surfing, yoga, meditation, reading a book, taking a walk,
Yeah.
exercise, eating right. Yeah.
That was the next question I was going to ask. What other modalities are you doing to, I have a routine. It's my jam. It keeps me like grounded and happy, healthy. And I was wondering like what other things, obviously surfing, we're going to get into it, but
Yeah.
I was curious, what other things do you do?
I do meditation, but not in like a traditional sense. I went through a course called Positive Intelligence, and the biggest thing that I took away from that was the ability to meditate in like little bite sizes, whether that's 1 minute or 30 seconds or 5 minutes. Like, I'm not a dude that can sit in the middle of the day and meditate for an hour. I just too busy. I got
I
too
got
much
stuff
stuff
to
going
do.
on.
Yeah.
But once I feel kind of whatever emotion it is that's steering me, that's not one of coherence, dude, I can bring myself back pretty quick with a little bit of a breath work and either tactile, audio, visual, meditation. And so that's been super helpful. And then just surrounding myself with good people. I'm not afraid anymore to tell people what I'm feeling and how I'm doing. Obviously I've got the people I trust, and just bouncing it off other folks has been super helpful too. So even if it's not a therapist, just talking to your buddies
Yeah.
is helpful.
No, I appreciate that. I think that everybody says there's a stigma with PTSD. I don't think it's always been the same stigma. I remember when it first started, you were weak. If you had some sort of issues, you were weak. And I feel like it changed from that to, it wasn't so much weakness as, oh, they want some money. It'd be like, oh, he's going to file PTSD claim because he wants some money. And then there's always the one that's, if you do identify that you have some sort of post-traumatic stress, it's like your career is done. Like you're not going to be doing that stuff anymore. So I feel like people who are open and honest about it, like you, because I believe that you've talked to at least a few podcasts I listen to, where it's not a death sentence. It's not like, okay, you're sick forever. It's like
Yeah.
saying you have a broken leg forever. Like I feel like you can get in a headspace that may be even healthier. I think that it's a bit harder with complex PTSD when you have years and years of stuff, but I think that that's why we need to change the stigma now, so we can be like, hey, let's get help as it's happening instead of waiting until you're just a train wreck.
Well, it's manageable. And if you equate that to, but yeah, equating that sort of injury, PTSD, to like a back injury, it's like you can sit around and say, I can't do anything anymore and I'm broken, and you can get fat, unhealthy, and that's just going to perpetuate the issue. Or you can go,
Yep.
you know what? I can manage this by eating healthy. I can work out, but I got to do a little bit different. And as
Hmm.
long as I stay in good shape and I'm flexible and I keep up with my cardio, my fitness, that this is a manageable thing. It's not a death sentence. It can be for
Yeah.
sure.
100% it can be. Like I see it either substance abuse or just killing themselves. Like that's what I see in my career field and like my group. It's either they continue down the dark path, either to like kill themselves unintentionally, like just by doing the whole bad coping mechanisms, or they just do it real quick. And I'm just like, man, eventually it will. If you don't do it, you can either be the victim of the situation or triumph and get up over it. But it
Yeah,
takes
I
a
would have
choice.
absolutely. And I think one of the crazy things about law enforcement is like the average life expectancy past somebody that's completed a full career is like 5 years and they're dead.
Yeah. I
And
read
then
that the other day. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was
the
like, that's
cops are
insane.
twice, two or three times more likely to kill themselves than they are to be killed in the line of duty. And that doesn't count, these unhealthy lifestyles. So just like the military, you work a full career, man, it'll break you down if you're not maintaining not only your mental wellness, but also your physical.
Yeah. The only difference I think is it's supposed. I feel like it's more acceptable to the veteran community to have PTSD than it is in police officers, you know, or even that whole like culture shift when they're like, "Oh, these cops are bad and cops are doing bad things," and it was almost like, "Well, it's because they're sick. It's because they're broken," you know. And it's like all this other stuff, and it's like, in a sense, yes, like there needs to be like improvement in the mental health world, but I don't think like blanketing it and saying that they're all bad is the way to go either. So I feel like there's a shift. There's a culture shift, and I think it's moving in the right direction. I'm excited to see it.
I hope so. And, kind of how you described, I hope that, um, that there aren't people that are going to, once this is more accepted, that aren't going to try to take advantage of that because one person taking advantage of a PTSD diagnosis is going to lead to other people assuming that everybody else is as well. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate. I know, I'm sure you've seen that accusations, whether real or not, in the military realm.
Yeah, see it all the time. I give you examples for days, and I'm just like, oh, like I've had people talk to me about it, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" But hey, maybe they need it for some childhood trauma that they didn't identify before they got in the military. So I'm like, "Hey, just get some help," you know. So we're gonna go back to the modalities that you're doing to improve the quality of your life and surfing. You mentioned surfing, and that's where you got to swell. How did you come up with the idea of swell?
Um, I had no idea that there was anything called surf therapy. And when I first heard the term, I kind of giggled. I'm like, seriously?
Right?
But man, it was such an organic thing. How it happened is, living in the Midwest, I was constantly making surf trips just to be in the water. And I got a lot of buddies that were in the military and stationed in various places. And I'd fly out to San Diego or LA or meet them in Mexico or Costa Rica, whatever, and go surfing with them. And then I started taking some of the guys that I worked with at the police department, and I'm like, "Hey, you want to go surf with me? I'm going out to meet up with Reggie." And they're like, "Yeah, I'll go." So I take them out, and they learn, and they're like, "Oh, this is great." And I'm again not the smartest, so it wasn't until I brought my buddy out to Corpus Christi, Texas. We were at a conference in San Antonio. I'm like, "Dude, let's drive down to Corpus." That's where I went to college. I'm like, "We can get a couple of surfboards. We'll go surfing for the day." So he's like, "All right." So he was like, the typical SWAT guy, like, always on point,
Yeah.
hyper vigilant, like, yeah,
Always
bro,
ready. Always
always
ready.
ready. Yeah. So, dude, we paddled him out, right? And the guy was scared to death of fish, but I got him out there and he's sitting on his board. And I just see his shoulders relax. I see the expression change in his face. I push him into a couple waves. We get on shore. The dude just pulls like a 180 on me. I'm like, oh my God. So it's like, I didn't realize what we are doing, but I could physically see it. And that kind of started to click. And I volunteered for a few other organizations in the Kansas City area that were nonprofits. I'm like, I wonder, I call Reggie. I'm like, dude, you want to do this with me? He's like, let's go. So,
Yeah.
man, I watched a lot of IRS .gov videos and figured it out. And we applied. And man, our first trip was in 2020. Some officers locally had their best friend killed in the line of duty, and we took them out.
Shit.
Dude, it started with me just throwing everything on my personal credit card and praying that I could fundraise to pay it off. And, just people pushing a couple of people into waves, and it's kind of blossomed. We actually have a program now. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a wild ride, but that's how it started.
That's awesome. And when I say swell, for those who are listening, it's surf, waves, enjoy life. I think it's a really fun acronym. So what is a typical surf mission weekend like? Like, what's it? Because me, it's like surf. It's not just surf, right?
Yeah, I mean, surfing is not what we do, it's how we do.
Right.
So, man, we fly them out Friday morning. Typically, we'll get there, grab some lunch, go to the beach. They'll work with Michelle Adams, who is a professor at one of the colleges of Santa Ana out there in California, and she also teaches heart math, teaches the fire academy, and heart math like heart rate variability, breath work, just some tools. So she'll get them out there, do like a little yoga session in the afternoon on the beach, get their heart rate variability readings early on, kind of get them moving. We'll bring them back to the house, usually go out, grab some food, kick it for a little bit. Everybody's kind of getting to know one another because not everybody knows everybody initially.
Yep.
Saturday morning, we wake up really early, go out there, dawn patrol. We've got a huge volunteer base with the Coast Guard out there, and they're great to work with, all along with other veterans, first responders, active and retired. Um, and they'll meet the crew. Usually, we only bring like 5 to 6 people out at a time just to keep the
Mhm.
group small. We're all staying in the same beach house too. And Saturday morning, we'll pair them up with a surf coach, give them a little onshore lesson. They'll do a little more yoga in the morning, kind of bring their anxiety down. Nothing crazy, but just
Yeah.
some stretching. Do a water safety briefing, pair them up with their coach, get them in the water, and from like 8:30 to like 2:30, they're surfing. We do lunch at the beach. Everybody's hanging out together, and it's cool because it's not like they're a spectacle to where people are just focused on them. They're
Yeah.
surfing with their surf coach, and depending on how well they're progressing, their coach might be on a board with them or might actually be swimming with them. Just depends. Sunday we run it back, same thing, and then Sunday afternoon, Michelle will come back out, work with them a little bit more, do another reading, and then Monday's usually just kind of an open day. Sometimes we'll get in an early morning session, surf, and then back home. One of the other cool things we do is like family style meals, like you would
Mhm.
do at the firehouse, where it's like, I don't care if you only know how to cut carrots,
You're
like you're
cutting
cutting carrots.
carrots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why we bring
You're peeling the
firefighters,
potatoes and yeah. Yeah.
because the firefighters, man, they are great. I compare them. It's fun to mix the cops and the firefighters in a group because the firefighters are like Labradors. Like they can work as a team. You give them a job, they all do it together.
Yep.
And then the cops are like cats. They're like out on their own, like trying to kill a mouse.
Yep.
So the firefighters are pretty great when it comes to the family style meals and getting everybody together. And the cops are really good about eating. So
Well, I feel like as firefighters have more downtime. We have like a love-hate relationship, EOD and firefighters in the military,
yeah,
at least in the Air Force. And we used to always dog on and be like, "Oh, did you put a fire out today?" Be like, "Oh, that's nice," you know. And we're like, EOD was created so firefighters could have heroes too, you know.
yeah, yeah. I've heard
But
that. Yeah, about the
yeah,
cops and firefighters. No,
yeah.
they're great.
No,
They're
it's
probably my
awesome.
favorite people. And we've
Yeah.
we've developed a really cool relationship with the Huntington Beach. That's where we go every mission. We didn't mention. They're fire and police to where they take care of us. Actually, this last trip we just got back from, man, they had us over to the firehouse for a meal. Like they cooked tri-tip and it tasted like prime rib. It was probably one of the best meals
Really.
I had in a really long time. Yeah, it was great. And the marine safety guys, the lifeguards, came out and helped us schlep our gear back and forth in their pickups. And then at the end of the first day, the battalion chief comes up to us and he's like, "Hey, you guys want to jump off the pier?" And I'm like, and people get arrested for that, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought he's just joking, but the pier's like, if you've never been out there, it's like 700 or 800 yards long. Like it's out there and it's like a 35-foot drop. Well, he comes back as we're packing up. He's like, "How many people are jumping?" I was like, "Oh, you were serious?" He's like, "Yeah." So like 10 of them went, like 5 coaches and 5 participants. And not only did they let them jump off the end of the pier, but they had their lifeguard jet ski, like skiing back in. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I've talked to a few people recently. One of them was a former SWAT guy, and then another one was a professor, not professor, researcher, and lieutenant Sarko. I can't remember his last name, but we were talking about like just talking about this stuff is very therapeutic, and I agree with one of them. I was like, absolutely. He's talking about podcasting, and he's like, I feel like I just had a therapy session just talking to you, and I was like, that's really cool, and that brings me back to like what you're doing and why I think it's so valuable because one of my favorite things to do is to talk with the boys. But in my environment, talking with the boys meant we're going to the bar and we'd be at a bar drinking beers, hanging out, chasing women, but also talking. The talking was amazing. And then after that, I was talking to Sarko, and he's like, it's not all good and it's not all bad. He's like, the thing is, talking about it is really beneficial, but taking out those negativities and those negative coping mechanisms of drinking, he's like, you can still have those situations in those environments, but it be positive. And that's what I started thinking about SWEL. And I was like, that's what you're creating. And I was wondering if you had any stories of something like that happening where like the guys loosen up, kind of break down those armor, get comfortable with each other and start having those conversations that are a little bit deeper, more meaningful. And then afterwards feeling that release and that relief without the negativity of like, uh-oh, I just spent all night drinking.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. And that's kind of really the crux of what we're trying to accomplish. And Matt Domyancic,
Yeah.
He comes
He's
out.
amazing.
He's our chaplain. What a good dude! That guy can work a room and get
Yeah.
people to open up without them realizing it. And I see a lot of them opening up, or it's to the surf coach. We had a really cool experience a couple of years ago. There was a Sacramento County deputy that was shot, and a CHP officer actually saved his life. And they had run into each other maybe once after the incident, but not really. And I know the CHP officer was carrying a load because he actually showed up, and the officer didn't realize this, to the Sacramento County deputy's hospital bed, and was like, would not leave the hospital until he knew that he was going to survive. And then he finally left. So they didn't have that kind of closure. And then obviously the traumatic experience being shot in the face with your own gun
Yeah.
with that SAC deputy. So we brought them out, and they actually reunited at the beach house. And I remember I put those two on the grill, and I just kind of sat in the corner and listened. And dude, they relived the experience, not in like gruesome detail, but just kind of like from their perspective. And it was cool because you could see them opening up, but also like the CHP officer, um, you know, let it sink in that what he did was something that was truly amazing and really saved this person that now you can sit and have a conversation with. And then, the SAC deputy was able to kind of express his gratitude for everything that the CHP officer did. So yeah, we've got a lot of really cool examples of that happening. And the best thing about it is, dude, I didn't do anything but fly these people and put them in a house together
Right.
and just set the
Came with a
table, right?
surfboard, some food to eat.
Yeah, there's something about like surfing's not easy, right?
Yeah.
Like it's physically exhausting, especially if you've never done it, and then you go do it for 6 hours. And so these people are starving and physically exhausted and coming back, but they're in that, hopefully, that flow state. They've been in nature all day. They've been away from all their stressors. They haven't had to carry their gun or their radio. They haven't worried about their phone blowing up or their kids screaming in the back, and they're able to actually feel the feelings, and those walls have really kind of been torn down. So that's the cool thing about surfing, man, is that it does all the work for you. I've heard it been called by one of our firefighters. It's like, dude, it's sneaky therapy. I didn't believe you, but it's sneaky therapy.
It is. You mentioned a study by Dr. Russell Crawford, the impact of ocean therapy on veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. I was flipping through that briefly, and there's a lot of things that jumped out to me, like the power of nature, as well as you're disconnecting from the social aspects of life. You're like me personally, I've tried surfing for a bit. It wasn't my jam. And it's not that I didn't like it. There's moments that it was so rewarding, where I'm out there and it was just so grounding, so peaceful, so calm. It wasn't so much catching the wave that I enjoyed. It was the quiet, and the waves crashing in, the waving, the shakas at people.
Yeah.
And then like it's just that being able to disconnect, be present in the moment, being in something that's so much bigger than you. And it kind of like brought me back to like realize that my issues, my problems, my shit ain't that big, because like this is so much more than that. And I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, great point about perspective. It's like when you're out there in the Pacific, you realize you're just a little speck and you're not in control. And even a little 3-foot roller will smash you if you're not paying attention, you're not mindful, you're not in the moment. So yeah, Russell Crawford, that guy's did a great study on Operation Surf, and it really sheds a light on kind of why that works. So grateful to him for putting that out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, and I'll add that in the show notes because I think it's a fun read. It's very powerful. And then the other one was doing hard stuff. Challenge yourself. I feel like I didn't do that for so long. I was so afraid to. I guess that dark side of me that I knew was aggressive or, whatever. It seemed to be a bit negative. Like I was afraid to expose that or let any of that out. So I avoided conflict. I avoided anything that made me uncomfortable, which eventually like I avoided discomfort to the point where like if I went to the grocery store, I was uncomfortable, like it just, my level of discomfort just kept getting more sensitive. And the only time that it really shifted in a positive direction was when I started doing challenging stuff. And then it was like at the time, I think it was just working out, eating clean. That was my challenge. And then after that was eating, and then it was jujitsu. And then after that was competing in jujitsu. Like, so then it went the opposite direction where like my sensitivity for discomfort got less sensitive. And I feel like that really just, man, that opened up my life so much more. And I didn't feel all that discomfort. I feel like so many people go around just carrying that discomfort, trying to avoid any sort of challenge out of fear, you know? And I feel like once you let that sit in, it gets really bad.
That yeah, isn't that crazy how doing uncomfortable shit makes you more uncomfortable or makes you more comfortable?
Yeah, it doesn't. I heard something the other day. It's like you're going to suffer no matter what. You're either going to just suffer mentally, or you're going to suffer by doing discomfort. You know, there's going to be discomfort. You just pick whichever discomfort you want. You know, one
Yeah.
of them's going to be rewarding, and the other one's going to be forever. You know, and I was
And
like,
you prefer rolling around with sweaty men as opposed to surfing? I Hey,
right?
each
Hey,
your
we're
own.
both getting wet, right?
The difference
Yeah.
being is you could probably choke me out in about 2 seconds. I could
You
maybe
just
swim away from you.
tuck me underneath the water. Yeah. No, I went with some fun guys. They would just pull my lanyard. So I thought I was caught by a shark every 15 minutes, which was hilarious. But yeah, no, it was like, I feel like my baseline, like it was fun. It was enjoyable. But it, like, I feel like we all have that one thing or those few things that are really enjoyable. And at that time in my life, I was trying to figure out what that was for me. You know, like traveling, I realized was something I enjoyed doing. I went to like Philippines and all this other stuff, which was fun to travel, but I was like not quite there. And then I went to Alaska and like just the magnitude of how big and beautiful it was. I was like, oh, this is the type of traveling I like. So then I was looking for something like physically rewarding. And I was like, surfing. I was like, it's great exercise. I'm in the sun, great vitamins, great people, you know. So I got into that and it was really fun. But I was like, let's hone this in a little bit better. And then it was jujitsu. And there's layers to why I think jujitsu is really cool, but we don't have to jump into that. But I just I feel like whatever works for you, you know. And I think
Yeah,
what
no,
you've
absolutely.
got is so cool. And like I don't know, let's jump into that. Like, how does someone get involved in helping, volunteering? Like, is there a list of people that want to join? I'm sure there is because it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean we've so on our website we've got a place you can nominate somebody. You know, the great thing is that a lot of people want to do it. The unfortunate thing is funding is always limited. So, you know, I keep people on a list and I keep them in mind and try to get as many people out there as we can. We've been pretty successful considering we're a surfing organization in Kansas City, but we take people from all over the nation. So, yeah, I mean, if you know of somebody that would want to support us, that's in need of a tax write-off or might want to partner for some exposure, and we welcome partners 100%. You know, we're doing really well with our surf coach volunteers. Most of the work that we do, it takes place in Huntington Beach, and we've got such a great family now, especially with the city getting on board and the Coast Guard base that I mentioned earlier. We're solid there. So I think just spreading the word and being open minded and reaching out, because not only am I taking people surfing, but this is probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever experienced after doing podcasts. So I've had people just randomly reach out to me that just needed somebody to talk to, man. And I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor or nothing, but hit me up if you just want to talk. You're
Yeah.
going through some shit. Like I will listen to you, and I will do everything I can to get you whatever resources you might need to pull you through. And who knows, maybe we can go surfing at some point. So
Yeah.
it just having people interested fuels my energy to not only work a full time job and have a kiddo, but continue to do this mission.
No, that's awesome. Just trying to think. It is rewarding. And I was thinking back before, because this is kind of like the last stage where I see a lot of people who are like thriving, who may have had PTSD and issues like that. Like they start giving back to the community they love and care about. And that's like the final thing that really like drives home like the healing process where they've like found themselves, found their new tribe. You know, they're giving back like they used to do, and like when you're actually doing police officer stuff. And I was just curious, like, if you were to start over, like, what are some other things that you would have done preemptive to kind of set yourself up mentally to be more successful, or I guess more mentally grounded, or, you know, something along those lines?
Yeah, I would have sucked it up and somehow taken good advice, which I'm sure was given to me throughout the years, and done like the yearly check-ins. Even if I didn't think anything was going on, just sitting down and doing a talk therapy with somebody, I'd have found meditation a lot sooner too.
Yeah.
And really, rather than just shoving it down, figured out what's a healthy way I can process this call that I know I'm going to deal with sooner or later. So if you experience something that's traumatic, whether it's affecting you right now or not, take the time to feel your feelings. It's funny because for so long I was so numb and I just wouldn't feel feelings. Now, man, if I see a sad movie or whatever, bro, I'm crying.
You're
Like I can't
right.
hold it in anymore, and I don't
Yeah.
give a shit. You know,
Yeah.
when I see something funny, I'm gonna laugh. So
Hmm.
it's the difference between um, watching a black and white TV to watching 400 million K or whatever the new TV is now. It's like everything's so much more vivid when you can feel your feelings and you're not just shoving that shit down. So
100%.
figuring out a way to process that. And for me, like I said, it's been occasional talk therapy. It's been being in nature, whether that's out hiking a trail in Missouri or in the water in California. And then, feeling when it comes up, dude, and dealing with it now because you're gonna deal with it one way or the other.
Yep, I agree 100%. I was very similar. Nothing. I didn't have anything. I felt like a gray life. Like it felt like it was cloudy every day. I didn't see color, like that kind of thing. It was just like I wasn't ever sad. I wasn't ever happy. I was just always like,
Just numb.
yeah. And I hated it. And then once it came up, I fought. I was like, I'm never letting these emotions go away again, because it makes life cool. It makes it fun again.
And
So
it's not a once you break through you're good. Like I mean
no.
this is a life practice. This isn't a surgery and you've got it fixed. Like I'm consistently finding that balance, and I find myself slipping at times and I know what I got to do. And like I said, I've got good people that are a lot smarter than me to surround me to tell me what to do. And
Yeah.
I'm not too proud to reach out and be like, hey, I think I'm fucked up, like I need something. Like what do you
Yeah.
think? So, and like I said, Matt's really good, Michelle's really good at that, and just
Matt's
talking to people like
amazing.
you is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people like Matt, because Matt is so like powerful. His presence is powerful, as well as you can tell. Like he is that take charge kind of guy. So like when you have someone that's like that, who's also like, hey, you got to work on your mental health. You got to take this serious. It's like when someone like that dominating is like promoting mental health. It's like, okay, I'll listen. Talk to me, big guy. I like it. I
Yeah.
like stuff like that. And then what else was it? Shoo. I have TBI. I brain fart pretty hard
It's
sometimes.
all good, brother.
I had it written down, I thought. No, okay, we'll just jump into the direction of Swell. What is your direction? Where are you hoping to get to? Like short term, long term?
Yeah. Short term, I'd like to continue to make, at least quarterly missions and start spreading it a little bit further with, I know my guys out on the West Coast are going to start doing monthly meetups for all the locals out there to just get together and build that community. Um, keep it going, keep driving the good word. And then, pie in the sky, it'd be great to eventually be able to get to a place to where there's actually a landing spot in Huntington Beach where we got all our gear we can bring people out to. It's all set up, um, ready to go. It's turnkey. So whenever we need to bring people out, but that's all
Yeah.
funding, or maybe some rich millionaire can leave me their house when they pass. I don't know.
Right. I love our
Yeah, no,
idea.
that's
We're gonna win the lottery.
it'd be super cool to have our own spot to where we could, consistently have everything ready to go and streamline it.
That's awesome. Well, where do we go to find you? Like, how do we get in touch with Swell? How do we donate? Like, where do we go?
Yeah, I mean, visually to see what we're doing, go to our Instagram or Facebook. It's at the Swell, and it's SWEL, just one L mission. Websites the Swell, again, only one L.org. Or hit me up, send me an email at info@theswell.org or rob@theswell.org, and I'll do my best to get back to you. But yeah, those are the best. We're on LinkedIn, but I do a terrible job of managing that. Fortunately, we got some
Tell me
really
about it.
smart people that do. Oh man, I'm terrible at social. We got really good guys that do our social
Yeah.
media. One in particular, Reggie, just knocks out of the park. So grateful for him, because if I was doing it, it would be awful.
Right. I check Facebook like once a month and I'm like, oh, I forgot I have a Facebook account. Yeah. I'm the
Yeah,
same. But I have a social media team and that's what they do. They pump it out and they're great. But man, if it was up to me, I'd be the exact same way.
100%. Yeah, it's great to look around and realize and reflection. It's like, Rob, you really don't know how to do much. You just have super cool friends. They're able to do all these amazing things, and all your job is to like buy the plane tickets.
Yeah. It's like I network. Leave me alone. I have a skill set
That's
too.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your net worth is your net worth, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you jumping in. I don't have any other questions that I can think of. Is there anything that you wanted to say or present that maybe I didn't give you an opportunity to?
I'm just going to reiterate what we talked about in our first conversation. What makes you unique and so cool is how humble you are. And a lot of people like these true crime podcasts and things like that because people are inquisitive and they're trying to learn something. And I genuinely feel like that's what you're doing here. You're not trying to be a guru. You're interviewing people and trying to learn along
Yeah.
with your audience, man. And knowing people like yourself that have been through the shit and come out the other side and are still trying to learn is super cool. And I hope that you blow up and maybe people will give you a like, follow, listen for sure.
Oh, I appreciate that. Kind words, that's I try to stay authentic with it because that is it. I'm not a guru. I don't know everything. I make mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes, like I talk about discipline, staying on the path, leveling up, but you know what? Every day I'm not successful, and talking to people like you and talking to people like Matt, Abigail Manning, all these hammers that are out there crushing it, it's like you guys inspire me and motivate me to wake up every day and try to be better, and if I messed up yesterday, you know what? Today's not yesterday. We're going to do it right. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate what you're doing. And hopefully everybody go shred some gnar with Rob. Oh, that's it. Where's your favorite place to surf? Like out of all the places, have you surfed Hawaii yet?
So no, I need to come
I
visit,
know a
but
guy.
man, I do need to come visit. I can use the board that you don't surf anymore.
There's a board right here. It's a 10-foot. It's horrible.
Costa Rica and Mexico are really fun spots, man. And the environment, the food, just kind of the waves, everything. So
Yeah. Ah,
who's again?
yeah, stupid VPN.
There
I
we
don't know
go.
what it's doing. Sorry about that.
No,
So
that's cool.
Costa Rica and the lifestyle there and that just
Yeah, man.
atmosphere.
Costa Rica, Mexico, those are really cool spots. I've made a couple of trips out to the UK and surfed out there. That's cool. I just like the adventure, man. It's hard to pick one spot. Just
Right.
going new places and having a surf adventure, regardless of what the conditions are, is fun.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, if you ever make it out here, I got a lot of veterans out here that do surf, and they'll take you to a few of the really cool spots.
Yeah, love it.
Awesome. We'll wrap it up with that. You have
Thanks
a good
for
day,
that.
sir.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for jumping
Yeah,
on here.
absolutely. Can't wait for it to come out.